Do you often think you're a terrible writer and that everything you've written should be thrown away? It's a common feeling. Even the most famous authors in the world have these crises where they doubt their abilities. But there are reasons why writers in particular are susceptible to doubt. There are specific things about writing and the writing life and the publishing industry that tend to suppress confidence. You probably haven't even realized that the writing life is structured in a way that quashes your confidence. But once I point out these things to you, you will never see your writing career in the same way again. Here are 8 reasons why you are actually a better writer than you think. 1. Negative to positive feedback ratio. The amount of negative feedback that you receive as an author might be skewing your perspective of your talents. Really, the ratio of negative to positive feedback is unbalanced for most writers. I want you to tally up on a piece of paper how many rejections you can think of that you've received, and then how many nice, genuine compliments that you've received. Most writers end up with more rejections than compliments, and this makes you feel like you're a terrible writer. But it's just because the industry is set up in a way to constantly give you negative feedback. But even if we've gotten lots of praise, we have these cognitive biases that prevent us from remembering the very nice thing that Rashid said in our writing workshop, and instead lingering and concentrating on that insult that Emily wrote in the margins of our story. Criticisms are like tapeworms. They stick with us. While compliments are like lollipops. They taste good in the moment, but then they vanish pretty quickly. 2. Lag time between published work and talent. When I published my short story collection, I felt very distant to the stories when they finally came out. That's because I'd written the stories 4 to 6 years ago. It had taken years to edit them, submit them to literary journals and contests, win acceptances away for publication, then submit the book to publishing houses, get an acceptance and then wait another year for the book to come out, and then finally get it published and wait for people to actually read it. By the time it was published, I didn't feel like the author. I felt like a long ago version of me was the true author. And where I was stylistically and in terms of what I was interested in as a writer was worlds apart from what that book represented. The trouble was the feedback I was getting from professional reviews and reader reviews was for my long ago writing self and not my true current writing self. So what does that mean? Well, your writing skills probably haven't regressed during the lag time between writing and publication. No, you've gotten better. That means your writing is always beyond the writing that's currently getting feedback from readers. The feedback makes you think you're a worse writer than you actually are. 3. Self-criticism spree. Writers tend to be our own worst critics. I mean, it's kind of written into the job. Revision is such a deep part of writing, which requires us to be so deeply critical of our work that we're willing to throw away huge chunks of it. So writers have developed this mindset where they're constantly being critical of their own work. That can lead us to think about ourselves in a more negative light than we really should. We're creating these deep grooves in our brain that say, you're not good enough, you'll never be a writer, this is terrible. I guess the critical voice in my head is a Lord of the Rings dwarf, I don't know. That's why I suggest to writers to take some activities to counterbalance all the self-criticism. You should be scheduling some sort of celebratory feedback sessions. With your writing group, say all of you share work and all you can do is provide compliments. Or sit down and make a long list of all the things you like about a piece that you've recently written. You have to retrain your brain to see all the positive things about your writing rather than only the things that could be improved. That's why as an editor, I spend a good chunk of time telling writers what they're doing well because they need to know their strengths. Without that type of encouragement, writers won't have the motivation to keep writing. 4. We compare widely. Some of you probably think of yourselves as pretty good basketball players. That's because when you go to your gym or when you go to your local park, you're one of the better players there. But you don't get the chance to play against LeBron James, do you? Because then you would see that you suck. And you should never play basketball again, ever. Well, every single day, writers are playing against the LeBron James of the writing world. Every day we read books from the greatest writing talents in the world. And every day people go to Amazon, they are choosing between buying the LeBron James author book or your book. So with those authors to compare our work against, of course we're going to feel bad about ourselves. The truth though is that there are a lot of sloppy, not so well written books that make their way through traditional publishing and through indie publishing as well. 95% of books sell less than 1,000 copies. And so many books have under 10 reviews on Amazon. I want you to remember those books. When you are comparing yourself to others, I don't want you to only compare yourself to the LeBron James of the book world. Compare yourself to those small books, the books you didn't like, the books with under 10 reviews, the books that didn't sell any copies. When you start making those comparisons, you start feeling a lot better about yourself. 5. Reporting gap. Writers often don't hear accurate and thorough feedback about their writing. My book for writers, The Linchpin Writer, which you should definitely get a copy of, has sold thousands of copies, but there are only 120 reviews on Amazon. What that means is there are lots of people that enjoyed it, but I will never get to hear their compliments or their experience of how it helped them. Listen to me, there are always going to be lots of readers that truly enjoyed your book, but you're never going to hear it. They never leave a review. They never email you. For every person that reaches out and publishes a public review, there are dozens, sometimes hundreds of people who don't. They just quietly enjoy your book and move on to the next one. So you might feel like a worse writer than you really are because you're not getting the full extent of all of the positive feedback. 6. Equating sales to talent. Look, it's entirely natural that if your book doesn't sell a lot of copies, you're going to be like, I'm not a good writer. Maybe that was my best Eeyore voice. When your book flops like that, it's natural. You feel like a failure. But it is always a mistake to equate sales with talent. I know some tremendously talented authors, people who have writing skills beyond all reckoning, and they have published wonderful books that I love, but they just don't sell a lot of copies. Sometimes the concepts were a little bit too obscure, sometimes the books were too literary or too experimental, or maybe the book just wasn't marketable. Remember that some books sell a huge amount of copies and the writing's not that good. Ultimately, you should feel good about yourself as an author, even if you don't have a gazillion readers. Be happy with the number of people who devoted their time and their attention to experiencing the world of your imagination. It is an honor to even have 100 readers. 7. Imposter syndrome. Art in general is a place where people tend to feel like fakes. But what's funny is that doesn't really happen in other careers. Do plumbers get imposter syndrome? What about insurance salesmen? Do accountants feel like imposters? No, they all just do their jobs. But something about art is always making us feel like we're a fake and someone is going to find out that we're not the real deal. If you are plagued with imposter syndrome, then by definition, you are a better writer than you think you are. You literally have a syndrome which is tricking you into thinking less of yourself than you should. Number 8, the publishing industry is designed to depress you. Freddie DeBauer has this wonderful article explaining how the publishing industry is designed to make you feel like a loser. A lot of authors who don't earn out, which means earn their advance back, they end up feeling like losers. But as he points out in this article, publishers start making money way before the book actually earns out. Essentially, publishers are throwing up smoke screens to make authors feel terrible so they can keep more of the revenue. And if you're self-publishing, you can also feel like a loser. Your book is up there on Amazon alongside bestsellers with tens of thousands of reviews. That's a tough comparison right there. And because self-publishing, if you do it right, costs a good amount of money to do cover design and do copy editing and do all those things, a lot of self-published books don't end up earning that money back unless you publish multiple books. If you can recognize that the whole ecosystem of publishing is designed to make you feel like a loser, you can sort of resist that pressure and be like, I feel good about my writing despite the system telling me that I'm not worth much. Let me add one final counterpoint to everything I've said so far. I'm aware that the points that I'm making don't apply to everyone. There is a certain segment of people who overestimate their talent rather than underestimating it. You might be one of those people, and you watch this video and you said, I kind of feel the opposite from all those things. And if you're not one of those people, maybe you've been in a workshop with those people or had one of those people for a beta reader or something. Well, my next video will be 12 signs that you're actually a much worse writer than you think. No, I'm not gonna make that. That would be mean. Seriously though, for someone like that, I think you also have to take steps to proactively ensure that you have a better conception, a more realistic conception of your talents as an author. Otherwise, you are going to get bitter that no one is recognizing your talent and you're gonna burn out. In the end, if you do feel badly about yourself as an author, I hope this video helped you feel a little bit better. And you know what would make me feel better about myself? If you click the little like button and subscribe. Thanks.